look at a recent purchase of mine. It is a chronograph. It's a vintage chronograph from one of my favorite brands, of course, Bulova. I love Bulova and I have no idea why I love them so much, but this has been a watch that I've had on my radar for many years. It's referred to as the Deep Diver. It's referred to as the Devil Diver. It's the Chronograph B. It gets a Coke bezel, which is bidirectional. Just every detail and element of this watch I find attractive. Let's flip the camera and take a look at one of my favorite vintage chronographs ever. So here it is. This is the Bulova Chronograph Devil Diver. It's also called the Deep Sea and also the Chronograph B. So it has a few different names, really 3 different names. And it's a really good looking diving chronograph from the 1970s. This one is probably from the early 1970s. It has a Coke bezel, so you have a black and red bezel, and it is really faded, but the dial is actually not faded, so you have a very crisp black dial on here. It's a reverse panda, so you're getting the white sub-registers, and the hands all look original. The indices all applied, all look original. That bezel also original. The case on here is a 38 millimeter case. That's one of the reasons why these are really special, and I think very popular chronographs. So when you measure the case itself, it comes out to just under 37, just over 37 millimeters. So 37.5, 37.6 is where I've measured it at. And it's a little bit thick. So you have this really domed acrylic crystal, and it comes out to around 15 millimeters thick with that acrylic crystal. And then the lug to lug, you have these really long lugs on here that do not curve down. And you can see you get like a 47, almost a 47 millimeter lug span because of that. And the watch does not wear small, so it's 46.9 millimeters. And you have a big crown on here. This is a replacement crown, so it's almost 6 millimeters, but the original crown would have been the exact same size. There's a lot of special little details on this watch that make it really cool and obviously very 70s. The case shape, those lugs obviously make it look like a 1970s dive watch slash chronograph. So it's a chronograph, it's a diver's chronograph. That's why they call it the Deep Dive. The Chronograph B was meant to be that. You have a friction fitted bezel, and the first 20 minutes are in that red color, obviously very faded, and then black for the rest, also very faded. The chronograph on here isn't working great, so I'm actually not going to activate it, but it is telling perfect time. Now, I did buy this as broken, and it actually is working better than I thought it would be. It's telling perfect time. I actually bought this on Whatnot for $500. That is literally nothing for this watch. Even broken, this is worth more than $500. This is actually telling perfect time, so I probably will get the chronograph fixed at some point. This is definitely a keeper in my collection. It's a watch that I have wanted to own, and I have been searching for one. I never was able to find one at a good price, and I found one at an excellent price on Whatnot. And again, it was the same seller that I have bought a few watches from. One of those watches was a vintage Hoyer, sort of a pilot's watch, the 510-501, an amazing bargain. That was $900, and those sell for in the neighborhood of around $3,000 and up, depending on the condition. This one was really good condition, and I bought that for $900 on Whatnot. Keep Watching is the seller that I buy from, and I basically attend all of their auctions because I know that they have some killer vintage watches mixed in with all of their lots, so I pay attention. And of course, here is another purchase that I made for $500. This is telling time. As I mentioned, I actually put this on my app. So I have an app that actually sort of times watches, and I think this is plus or minus around 15 seconds per day, which is really not bad for a vintage watch of this age. Now, like I said, the only thing that's not working is the chronograph, and that's because it's not engaging with the movement. The chronograph is working, it just needs to be repaired. so that it re-engages with the movement. It's probably just bent, so I need to do that myself, or I'll have it serviced. I'd really rather not have it serviced because it's in such great condition. There's just some scratches on the crystal. Like I said, the dial is basically original and in very good condition, and the bezel, awesome condition. I don't want to change anything here. I wouldn't want it polished. There's some nicks on the bottom of one of the lugs, and that's really the only major scratches on here. I'm pretty sure those could be buffed out, and there's a couple of scratches right here where someone tried to open up the case back. That's it. And other than that, it was in really clean, very good condition. And for $500, there literally isn't a vintage chronograph out there from a major brand like Bulova, Swiss made. You have a tachometer around here. That's all intact, in perfect condition. You wouldn't be able to find these. Nowhere near $500. That is a phenomenal price. And actually, the Lume is the original Lume. So we will do a Lume shot, but the Lume will not last on this watch because it is the original Lume. I wouldn't have it any other way. I wouldn't want this relumed. I want the original Lume. I want the watches as close to the original as I could possibly get. Like I said, the only thing that's been replaced on this watch is the crown. That is very typical. I've owned two, now this is my second, vintage Bulova chronographs, and both of them have replaced crowns now. And I've seen a lot of them online that I went to buy, and usually they have replaced crowns. So that's pretty typical. You can replace the crown. It is pretty easy. But there you go. Prices on these do vary. So you can get broken versions on places like eBay for around that $1,000 mark, or they're very heavily patinaed to the point where it's almost damaged and not patina. You have bubbled dials and things like that. I don't really want that. I wanted something like this that was clean looking. And that's kind of how I like a vintage watch. I think that this looks clean. It has good patina, but it's not damaged in any way. And then they go up to around $3,000 for pristine conditions, new old stock, which I think are really actually pretty good prices for an amazing chronograph. The fact that I got this for $500 is phenomenal. Anyway, let me show it to you on my wrist. So like I said, this is a 37.5, almost 37.5 millimeter watch. Today I have on another vintage watch. This is my Waltham Bathyscaphe. Obviously, this was a private label watch for Waltham, made by Blancpain. It is a Bathyscaphe, so it's the exact one-for-one version of the Blancpain Bathyscaphe, but they just rebadge it as a Waltham. That's how they were getting them into the United States at that time. And here you go. I mean, just a beautiful watch that is obviously a Swiss-made diver from the 1970s. I believe this was probably late 1960s, early 1970s. This big crown on here. It winds really nicely. This is an automatic, so it gets an A-Shields movement. This gets a Valjoux movement. So the movement inside the Chronograph B, or Deep Diver, or Devil Diver, and it's called a Devil Diver because it has, on the dial, it says that it is 666 feet of water resistance. So that's why they got that nickname. So a lot of Bulovas had that on their dial, and they were called the Devil Diver. That's really it. That's the only reason why. So the movement inside here is a hand-wound movement. It is a Valjoux 7733, which is a very reliable movement from the 1970s, and it's actually not bad looking either. If I could throw up a picture of it, I will. I'm not going to try and take a picture of the one in here because I'm not going to try and take off the case back, but it is working really strong, and like I said, very accurate. It's actually telling very good time, which I am very surprised. But you could see on my 7.5 inch wrist, this wears like a modern sized chronograph. That 38 millimeters with the 15 millimeter thickness and the long lug to lug. So it's a lug to lug that matters here. This is a vintage watch with a 47 millimeter lug to lug, and that makes it wear way more modern. And I actually have a modern watch here that I want to show you guys. This is a watch that I just recently reviewed on my channel. I think the video went up actually yesterday. This is the Bourbon Watch Company, and you can see here the lug to lug here is just a little bit smaller than this watch. And this is a, I believe, a 30, I want to say this is a 39 millimeter watch. Yeah, 39 millimeter watch, so it's a little over 39 millimeters. However, the lug to lug is shorter than this watch, which is around 37.5 millimeters. So it does wear bigger. Plus you have these sort of extra little lug areas, you know, this sort of, I don't want to call it a shrouded lug, but it's like not hooded either, but you know, you have these thick lugs, so it does look and wear bigger than the 37 millimeters. There you go. Anyway, let's do a quick lume shot and then wrap up the video. You see the pip is still working and is actually lumed, but everything else is lumed as well, but fading very quickly. So the hands are lumed, the indices are lumed, but the lume is all original. So it does not last long, but the fact that it's still there and still working, pretty awesome. This is a fantastic find. I am so happy to have this watch. I'm really just ecstatic about it. The two recent purchases that I have made from Whatnot have been phenomenal. There is a link down in the description to Whatnot. If you are interested in joining Whatnot, you get a $10, I think, voucher when you join to spend on a watch. I definitely suggest you follow Keep Watching. Of course, follow myself on Whatnot as well. I do live streams there on a regular basis. And there are a lot of watches out there like this. These are amazing finds on there. And you just have to join the live streams to be able to buy one. And it just takes a little bit of time, but it is actually pretty fun. You get to see a lot of different watches. And if you're into vintage watches, they have some really great resellers on there. So I highly recommend it. Definitely check them out. Check out my channel. It's definitely worth it. You can see the lume does fade very quickly, but what do you expect from a vintage watch that's almost 45 years old, somewhere in that neighborhood? Tell me what you guys think. It's actually more than 45 years old. It's early 70s, right? Really not that bad. Anyway, tell me what you guys think down in the comments below. I want to hear from you guys. What do you think of this watch? What do you think of Whatnot? What is your experience on there? If you guys have joined, throw some comments down below. Please also don't forget to like and subscribe, hit that bell icon. It is super helpful for the channel and I very much appreciate it. Please follow me on Instagram. My Instagram is WatchChrisBlog, all one word. I have some links in the description. Those links are to Amazon. If you click those links and buy anything, it helps support the channel. It doesn't cost you anything extra. However, I very much appreciate it. Anyway, thank you for logging on. I'll catch you guys in the next video.